All right, listen, I think Civil War's pretty good. The movie, not the concept necessarily. Possibly better than a lot of people. I've been hearing a lot about this movie, and nobody seems to be super down on it, but I've seen a lot of people who are kind of lukewarm, and I thought it was... I mean, I got some problems with it, but I thought it was pretty good. And I've got a few things to say about it, so I figured I'd talk about it, you know? I went inside earlier today, and took some notes. So this doesn't have like a script or anything, which means there's a decent chance that it's gonna be kind of a rambling mess, but we're gonna just kind of get through it, you know? Usually I feel like I struggle a lot with spoilers, but this guy's still pretty new. As of recording, it's only been in theaters for like, I don't know, 3-4 days. It's currently Monday. I assume it came out Friday. Might have come out Thursday. When do movies come out? I don't know. I think it's a pretty good movie, and so I don't want to deter anybody who might stumble upon this from seeing it. So I'm gonna do my best. I've got some spoiler-free stuff that we're gonna talk about here for a minute, and then we're gonna get into the spoiler stuff. I'll give a big warning. So yeah, let's just kind of dive in. If you haven't heard anything about this movie, Civil War, it's directed by Garland, the guy that did like Ex Machina. He did Annihilation. He wrote 28 Days Later. It's a very talented dude. It's not as weird as a lot of his stuff is. Like, there's no like sci-fi twist to this one, which I think threw a lot of people off. It stars Kirsten's a silly name. It stars Kirsten Dunst as a hardened, road weary war photographer who she's basically running around because America is in the midst of a civil war. The Western forces, made up of, California and Texas, plus there's like a Florida contingent that they kind of bring up every now and then. They've seceded. There's now a big civil war happening. She's covering it as a war photographer. So it's the basic story is her and her partner, who's played by Wagner something, the guy that was he played what's his ass in Narcos, and the two of them and a kind of an older fellow journalist who's played by the dude who's like the human computer in Dune, among other things. But the guy, the 86,000 Solaris, sir, or whatever, that guy. It's the three of them, and then this kind of go-getter who wants to become a photojournalist, a war photographer, played by the chick that played Priscilla in the new Priscilla movie. She's in it, which puts Kirsten Dunst in kind of a reluctant, what do you call it? Not role model. Jesus, we just started. This is gonna be rough. It puts Kirsten Dunst in kind of a reluctant, what do you call it when you training the person? Not role model. Not teacher. And yeah, that's basically, they're on their way to DC. The team of them, it's honestly, it's a road trip movie, which is always kind of fun. I don't know, I'm a sucker for road trip movies. It's an interesting narrative structure because basically the movie is they start at point A, they're trying to get to point B, and then it's just a bunch of instances that happen. It's just a bunch of scenarios. The movie is just a series of scenarios, and I don't know, it's a fun ride, in my opinion. So I've found myself pretty locked into film Twitter in recent months, and obviously I watch a lot of film, YouTube channels and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not to brag, but I'm a bit of a movie buff, and I've heard a lot of kind of reviews of this movie and a lot of people who have certain kind of problems with it, and I think they're obviously valid, but I don't know, they don't bother me so much, and I'll speak to those in a minute. But let's start off with the positives, okay? Right out of the gate, sound design is great, okay? If you have any interest in seeing this movie, I cannot recommend seeing it in theaters enough just for the sound quality. I mean, you need them speakers, you know what I mean? This may surprise you, but there's quite a bit of gunshots in this movie. A lot of shooting of the guns, and those gunshots are sharp, they are loud, they hit you every single time. They're quick. I think just about the first gunshots of the movie made me jump the first time I saw it. The first time it really took off. The sound design just throughout it was absolutely fantastic. It's an incredibly immersive, kind of intense scene, just from the get-go. All right, other spoiler-free positives. It's beautifully shot. I don't know if it's the focus on photography that the movie just in general has, because, they're war photographers. We see a lot of the shots that they take, which I think is super neat. Whoop. And so I don't know if it's kind of the focus or clear love for photography that the movie has that kind of made me predisposed to notice it, but some of the shot compositions are just excellent. A lot of the way they frame the truck that they're all riding in, that's super neat. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find any images from the trailers to kind of back that up. Otherwise, I'll put it on top of here. Trying to think spoiler free still. There's one of Kirsten Dunst after they make it through sort of an operation where she's sort of standing up on a roof, kind of off in the corner and framing. I don't know. There's some really cool shot composition. Like the film itself looks really good. Yet another reason kind of to watch it. Similarly, the acting is great. Basically, everybody in this thing kind of brings their A game. Kirsten Dunst is fantastic. You gotta love to see her, as a lead in a movie like this. My boy Wagner is so good. Wagner, I should know his name. Let's just type Wagner, see if he, yep, Wagner Mora. Wagner Mora is so good in this. For a lot of reasons I'm probably going to get to more in the spoiler part. Trying to keep this engaging so you'll go see it yourself. So I'll be honest, this movie's been on my radar for a hot minute because, again, film Twitter, can't avoid it. People are always talking shit about everything. But also, I like Alex Garland. I think he makes interesting stuff. Not to mention, like, it's a big budget A24 movie. And I think the A24 fandom can get a bit annoying. There's cool movies being made all over the place if you know where to look, or if you look hard enough at the very least. But you do have to admit, A24's made some really neat stuff. And like when they act as a production company, their willingness to just put the keys in a creative vision's hands and let that become whatever it's going to become is super admirable. And I think it's their place in the cinema landscape of 2024 is invaluable, right? But they've also made it clear that they need to start making money. A lot of people are making a lot of crap these days. I'd love to see A24 figure out a way to make a lot of money without having to go the crap route, Where was I going with this? Why did I bring up my love for A24? Oh yeah, and then when the trailer dropped, there were two moments in the trailer that got me all hyped to go see this movie. The first one I feel like is obvious. As somebody with my brow line, I gotta love me some Jesse Plemons, and this bit in the trailer.
Okay. What kind of American are you?
That is Jesse Plemonsing it up as Jesse Plemons-y as one could get. I mean, I want to see what's going on there. The second one is when the fella from Dune pulls up in the truck and is yelling, "Get in the car! Get in the car!" That line delivery, there's something about it. There's some kind of like, even in the trailer when I don't know the context, that delivery sounds like an older, experienced person pulling rank. And I love that kind of stuff. So right out of the gate, I was hoping for some good acting, and none of it disappointed. Especially like a bunch of the little side characters, because they're on a road trip. So as with any other road trip movie, a lot of the characters in it are one-off side characters that exist in this interaction on this stop in the road trip and won't be taken forward. And there's some really specific performances played by all of those. Without getting into spoilers, the guy at the gas station, not the main guy, but the guy we see the most of at the gas station, that performance, especially re-seeing it today, it's so somehow, like, it's weird, but it's believable. Like, I feel like I know people like him. I don't know. It's all great. It's all really good. As far as all the acting and stuff is. That is not, I don't think anybody's complaints are coming from the side of the acting and the performances, and they're a treat to see. What else? The experience of this movie is very varied. It's a whole lot of super loud and then a whole lot of quiet, and super loud and quiet, both in the literal like noise of it, but also just like the plot. You hear a lot about the experience of being in the U.S. military, being a lot of hurry up and wait. That's kind of what the movie does. It'll be quiet for a while, and then it'll be super loud all of a sudden, and then it'll be quiet, and then it'll be loud, and then sometimes the quiet is super loud. Like, it's the way it plays with tension and release, I think, is really good, and I think uses that road trip vignette sort of style to its advantage very much. It drags on at parts, I'll admit, like the fluctuation between being, really intense, action heavy, in your face, holy shit, we gotta go now, stuff's happening, boom, 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 to hanging out at a camp or on the side of the road, or, you know, the quiet moments can be a bit much sometimes. Like sometimes the quiet seems to drag on a little bit, but especially having seen it the second time, I came to really appreciate that, because when this movie hits, it hits really hard. And sometimes, you know, you want to be a bag of frayed nerves leaving this thing. That's the other thing I've heard a lot of people talk about. I'm going all over the place now. I told you this was gonna be a ramble, but another thing I've heard about a lot is people talking about how, like, a lot of Alex Garland's, especially like if you look at his filmography as a director, it's gone further and further into kind of the horror movie route, and this one isn't a horror movie per se. Like, it's not, there's no monsters or ghouls, or it's still quite tense. Like, it's a horror movie by a different name, I think. Kind of moving into the complaints. The first one's gonna be very specific to me and only a handful of people, but this movie suffers a lot from me living in Georgia, because, okay, a lot of movies get made in Georgia. I've worked on some of them. Ryan's working on one right now. You know, I dig being from a place where movies get made, as long as they're getting made here. We'll see if our state government fucks that up, but there's a lot of moments watching this movie, which I knew it was gonna happen, because even in the trailers, like, there's a scene next to a church, and on the top of the church says Jesus saves. That's a notable landmark. I have seen that so many times in, you know, Atlanta, and so there was a handful of times where I was like, I'm pretty sure I know this street, or like, that's Gwinnett Place Mall. Like, you know, there are elements of that kind of took me out of it. Can't blame the movie for that. I can only blame my parents for having birthed me here. The biggest complaint I'm seeing about this movie, the political element of it all. Right? Like, I'm of the belief that you should like what you like. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. And I like this movie, like, a lot. And I don't share a lot of the complaints of other, you know, respected, you know, people I like to hear talk about movies have some complaints about this movie that I don't share. And I think that's fine. I do, though, if over time I kind of change my tune and I start going further and further towards the, not detractors, because again, everybody seems to enjoy this movie. There's just some people who are a little bit more lukewarm on it than I am. If I move towards that lukewarm area, I think it's because there's a chance that my experience of this movie was benefited quite a bit by the theatrical experience. It was playing at the biggest screen at my local theater, and there's something so immersive about it, like, because it's such an intense movie. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it reminded me of seeing Drive in theaters. Way back when, because when I went to see Drive, didn't know anything about it. I only saw it because my buddy Drew wanted to see it, and he had a pretty good read on movies, so I was like, hell yeah, you know, I was like a sophomore in college, I think, maybe a freshman, I can't remember what month that movie came out. And that opening, if you've seen Drive, that opening, like, getaway drive sequence was so intense. I didn't know what to expect at all, and I was hit with that right out of the gate. I vividly remember thinking that, like, the projector could have broken 15 minutes in, and I'd have been like, got my money's worth. Like, it would have been worth it, because that shit was so, I mean, gripping my armrests, intense. And that's kind of how a lot of this movie feels. Again, if you have any interest at all in seeing this movie, try to see it in theaters. I'm not one of those people who are like, you should see every movie in theater. Like, yes, that is the environment that most directors intend for you to see their art in. But a lot of movies, you can see them at home. You know, this movie's not one of those movies. This movie, I think, is very much elevated by the locked in, dark room, loud sound system, big ass screen environment of the theater. You know, it's similar to how, like, I saw, like, Barbenheimer, when that happened, I saw both of those movies in theaters. I'm glad I saw both of those movies in theaters. If I'd seen both of those for the first time, you know, on HBO Max or some shit at my house on my TV, Barbie, I'd be like, wow, this was a fun movie. And Oppenheimer, I'd be like, fuck, I can't believe I didn't see that in theaters. You know what I mean? That's sort of the feeling I get with this movie. Fuck, you should see it in theaters. And to get back to kind of a big complaint about it, which this is a little bit of a spoiler probably, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you because I think it'll improve your experience of it, is a lot of people are kind of pissed about kind of a lack of political stance in this film. Like, in a lot of ways, especially to be a movie called Civil War set in a near future where America is in a civil war, given that the last 8 years of America has happened and we've already seen people fucking storm the Capitol and some idiots back on the ballot this year, and, you know, tensions are high, and who knows, we could end up in a civil war one day. You know, it's closer than it's been in a long time. To release that movie in this climate, I understand where a lot of people went in expecting a movie about that. It's not a movie about that. It's not a movie about America succumbing to this divide that we're currently experiencing and having a civil war. It's a movie about war photography. It's a movie about war photographers in a war, photographing that war, and what that means, what the role of a war photographer is, the toll it takes on, you know, somebody who does that occupation. Are people wrong for expecting more of a, you know, kind of a stance? I don't think so. Especially, honestly, similar to Drive, I think the promotional materials didn't help. They all make it look like, oh shit, this is the America is in a Civil War movie. So if you went and saw it and you were like, oh, let's see which one's the fascist, I would understand. And they do tell you, like, if you're paying attention, they tell you, okay, I'm hearing a lot of people who are like, they don't make clear who the sides are. I don't understand why these people have rebelled. Is the president the good guy? Is the president the bad guy? I don't know. And they tell you that. They tell you that in the beginning. They have a couple of straight info dump scenes about what's going on. And they use, you know, the war's been going on for a few years at this point. So they don't do that annoying thing of being like, oh, the Western forces are doing this. And then somebody else goes, what are the Western forces? You know, so they can explain it to the audience. They don't do that, which is nice. But if you're paying attention, they do explain who the bad guy is. At least who the bad guy should be. Who you should think is the bad guy. But the movie itself isn't a movie about let's take down the evil side of the American Civil War. The movie's about war photographers. And if you go in thinking that it's about war photographers, that's what you're gonna get. I don't mind that it's not a super politically charged film. And I'm not one of these guys that are like, oh, Star Wars was great until it got all political. It was always political. Most great art is political. It just is what it is. Politics are a very important part of the human condition, and they have a lot to say about how the human condition affects people. And if somebody's talking about ways in which their life is, obviously politics are going to play a part of it. This one's not as aggressive as the name and the concept and the trailers would lead you to believe. I'm okay with that because I think what they did to the story, and I think the setting specifically being the American Civil War, I think it has far more benefits from a storytelling perspective than if this was a morality play about whether or not you should vote for Trump. And that's about all I can say about it without getting into spoilers. So again, if you have not seen this movie, do so if you're interested. I mean, if war movies aren't your thing in the first place, and if it's a very loud, very tense movie. It is only an hour and 47 minutes long, which is a great length for a movie. I do love me some Oppenheimer, but sometimes 3 hours is a hard sell to the girlfriend. You know what I mean? And like, she went with this one. We saw a 9 p.m. showing, and she was into it because it was sub 2 hours, dude. We got out by 11. It was great. Okay, we're gonna move on. Bah! Spoiler time. Oh, it's spoilers. Have you seen this movie? No? Then fuck off, okay? Only watch this part if either A, you've seen the movie, or B, you have absolutely no interest in seeing this movie and you just like watching these for my pretty face. Otherwise, fuck off. Don't keep watching, okay? Because I want you to experience this. You know? I don't know. I'm all fired up now. I think part of it might be this whiskey. We're going to take a quick detour to give people time to click off of this if they haven't seen the movie yet, as we enter the spoiler zone. To talk about friend of the channel, Gendrid. I think I've definitely brought him up at least 2 or 3 times on this channel. He bought me this Four Roses Small Batch Select, and it is so good. It's genuinely, it's the hot honey of whiskey, because it's got that Four Roses sweetness that if you're into whiskey you may be familiar with, but it's like, what is it? It is 104 proof, so it's got a real burn to it. It's nice to be able to have like one little drink at the end of the night. You know, it's one of those kind of whiskeys, but it is great. And I'm pretty sure it's got me fired up here. I need a table I need a table like right here. One second. We're going on an adventure. And we're gonna take this guy. Okay, this is my drink table now. I've got my whiskey, just for punctuation. Got my water, because hydration is important. And I've got my burr, because your boy loves burr. All right, that's probably been long enough, huh? Spoiler time. So, first and foremost, love my boy Wagner. I think he is by far my favorite character in the movie. He's a fascinating character for what the movie is trying to say. His acting is incredible. He's a lot of fun. He's kind of got some boyish charm to him, in a sense. Absolutely love the guy. He's an adrenaline junkie, first and foremost. How do I want to get into this? So there's something that I think this movie is saying about the role that these people are taking in the conflict, that I think also there's something to be said about the concept at large that I'm probably going to save for a few minutes. So stay tuned, keep watching. You got to keep watching to see what I'm talking about there. Because Kirsten Dunst, who is our obvious protagonist, she is in it for what I think she believes is virtuous reasons, right? So like, there's that scene, we're in spoilers, okay, remember? So after the gas station scene, where that excellent quick side character that walks the young girl down, I don't remember any of these characters' names. The young girl, she freezes up. She talks about in the car afterwards that she doesn't even, it's like she forgot that she had a camera on her in the first place, and she's really beating herself up on it. And Kirsten Dunst is not cutting her any slack, because she didn't want that bitch to be on that journey in the first place. Unrelated, this is gonna be a ramble. I told you, I didn't write a script for this, okay? We're just along for the ride. I have not felt so old in a movie theater experience than when that character was introduced, because like I said, she plays Priscilla. I've not seen Priscilla yet. She was eventually an adult, right? Like, they were together for a while. And like, that actress, she's like 25 in real. Actually, how old is she? We're gonna find out. Kaylee Spaney is her name. Her character name is Jessie. She was born in 98. So it's 2024. She was born in July of 98. So let's pretend that's 99. She is 25 years old. That is a grown-ass adult. Like, not kind of a young adult, like 25, still young, but she's an adult. I remember being 29. I was a fucking grown-up. She looked like a child. When she's in the van, like when they're on their way out of DC, and she's in the van, and she pulls my favorite character to the side and is like, what the fuck? Why is that kid there? Because she's like a little kid. I was like, I'm right there with you, Kirsten Dunst. That is a child. Why are you bringing a 16-year-old on this fucking dangerous ass journey? She's not 16. She's a grown-ass adult. I'm just an old man. Anyway, she's in the back. She's feeling all bummed that she froze out and didn't take a picture of the hanging dudes, whereas Kirsten Dunst showed up and was like, can I take your picture with the hanging dudes? I went, this is really saying something. And Kirsten Dunst doesn't let up on her. She's kind of a bitch about it. She's like, yeah, you fucking froze. You shouldn't be here. You're not cut out for this life. Shouldn't do it. This is a mistake. I've been telling you from the beginning. And it's because she's portraying this image of, it's like a noble sacrifice doing what she does. There's war photography is in a very important role in a lot of ways. It does important things. The people who aren't at the gross stuff should be able to see what the gross stuff is. It's important that we all know the realities of what's going on. And so war photography for a long time has held a very important role. And that's kind of Kirsten Dunst's deal, is like, she's seen some shit. And like, right out of the gate, we see her when she's in that bathtub. We see that montage of shit that she's seen. Some of it was really upsetting. I think I have a strong aversion against being burned alive. We were talking about that guy, weren't we? Is that where this started? So there's an element of it, though, that Kirsten Dunst is probably not going to admit to herself, but that guy, her partner, Wagner, I'm going to call him Wagner because his name is like Jesse, maybe? No, that's the kid's name. Doesn't matter what his name is. I'm going to call him Wagner. The part of Kirsten that she's refusing to kind of give credence to, that he's going to embody wholeheartedly, is that they're fucking adrenaline junkies. Like they're crazy people. He gets a rush out of being in the shit and being a member of the press. He's got the press vest and the helmet. This is press on it, and he's got his truck. This is press on it, and he's not supposed to be shot at. So he kind of gets a free pass to be in these violent, life or death, edge of your seat scenarios that, yes, are dangerous for him. They could die. They almost died at the very beginning, but they're less likely to die than the people that they're surrounded with. It's like vacationing as a soldier and getting that rush without necessarily putting your shit on the line. And he unabashedly loves it, and I love him for it. He's there to be the guy who gets the story. Yes, it's important that the story is told, no matter who's telling the story, but he's gonna be the guy who tells the story. You know what I mean? Like, there's a sense of accomplishment to it. There's vanity and like joyridesmanship to it. Is that a word? I'm gonna use it. That's kind of how he goes about it. I love how he's seen laughing quite a bit. Like in the very first scene when they go to that demonstration. It's the one that this happens in. Jesus saves. But he runs into the friend of his that we later learn is from Hong Kong, and they're just like laughing it up. This is an intense, people getting beaten demonstration, and they're just kind of cutting it up, laughing on the side. And like when they're camping that first night, Kirsten Dunst is having some kind of like existential conversation with the old guy about what they're doing it for, and the fact that they brought this child along, and blah, blah, blah. And there's gunfire in the distance, and he walks up just like smoking a joint, and he's like, dude, that gunfire though? Let's get into that. You know what I mean? Like, let's go fucking run through the gunfire, guys. Like, that'd be so sick right now. And she's like, I'm not. Are you crazy? Like, it's nighttime. It's like, yeah, but what if it's still going in the daytime? She's like, all right, if it's still going in the daytime, we'll go. The way he like hits the joint, that like, cool. Like he's got the face of a kid who just got his way. Like a 15-year-old who just convinced his mom that like tomorrow, if they've got time, they'll go get frozen yogurt or whatever the fuck 15-year-olds are into. He had that kind of like knowing, like, cool, like, thanks, like, this is gonna be cool. I don't know, his excitement about all that is great. And then afterwards, when some heavy shit goes down, like we see some gnarly people getting shot. We open it with people getting shot. That's the gunshot that made me jump, by the way, when he's that one poor guy is like hiding behind the pillar, and it's fucking like blowing up on the pillar, and he's like, somebody get me, and it's very Saving Private Ryan-esque, and then he doesn't make it around the corner. But they go through all that intense shit, and like we get some close-ups on him, and he's just like grinning, like he is fucking rolling off of this. And then as soon as it ends and we get some music and stuff, we see him like cutting it up and laughing with the dude, the Hawaiian shirt guy that was kind of the head of the operation, the one they were following around through the buildings. I don't know, there's something perverse about what they're doing, because he's there, he's enjoying the ride, and people are dying around him. He deals in documenting other people's deaths and terrible things, and yes, a lot of it is terrible, but there's elements of it he enjoys, and that's why he's in it, and that's why they're all in it. That's a big part of, I think, the entire arc of Kirsten's relationship with the kid is when they're after all the shit goes down and everybody dies, and they're hanging out at the camp just before the Western forces march on the Capitol, and Kirsten meets the little girl. She's not a little girl, but like the kid, and she says something about being like, she was like, that's the most scared I've ever been, but also the most alive I've ever felt. And like, I think you can see on Kirsten's face that that's like the ultimate defeat, because it's got her now. Like, the lifestyle has got her now. It's a bunch of people living a destructive lifestyle to get a rush in the name of something good. And it's not to say that they don't do the something good, and it's not to say that the risks they put themselves at aren't noble necessarily, but they do it because they love it. First and foremost, if you're going to commit your life to it, first and foremost, you do love it. You might complain about it a lot, but you love it. And he loves being near people trying to kill each other. And the fact that he just kind of cops to that is super interesting to me. And like, I don't know, he's the most real of every character in the movie. He's the one I want to meet in real life the most, you know, hopefully under different circumstances. I don't want a civil war. Civil war is bad. So what else we got? The sniper shit, A+. I love that so much. The second or third little vignette on their road trip when they end up in that weird like Christmas town, and there's the dead guy just in the middle of the street, and they find themselves hunkered down because there's a sniper in the room or in like the house across the way. I guess it's a golf course, right? Is that a golf course? Probably. And that's like a clubhouse that he's shooting from. Their little interaction with those snipers was so great. First off, to allude to the political stuff, I'm going to come back around to the fact that we never learn explicitly what side they're fighting for. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people online that have probably figured it out. The clues are there. It's just not very explicit. The fact that it doesn't matter who's over there, it doesn't matter what side they're on. It's a life or death struggle. That's ultimately what the whole movie boils down to, is that it's just a bunch of people in life or death struggles, and those life or death struggles suck. And you know, we as people bring levity to all situations. The way that they're able to, I don't know, the way that guy handles the whole, my boy Wagner's trying to get to the bottom of what's going on, and he's just like, what are you talking about, dude? There's a guy over there who's trying to kill us. We're trying to kill him so that he doesn't kill us. What don't you understand? And like that moment when he keeps asking questions and the guy calls him something I'm not going to repeat here, and then he turns to the kid and he's like, hey, I think he says yo. He's like, yo, who's over there? And she's just like, a guy shooting. And he's like, yeah, that's all you need to know about right now. And like that whole interaction, and the fact that like the actual sniper, because I guess he's the spotter or whatever, and the actual sniper is like, will you guys shut the fuck up? And like it's a real tense moment. And then when he finally gets a shot and takes it, and then he opens that other eye and he's looking, and the way he's like, he just says, I've got good news. It's so pragmatic that, I don't know, it brings such a flavor to the world. That's the thing, like the world building in this movie. A lot of people are going to complain. I'm going to sit back down. A lot of people are going to complain, or a lot of people have complained about the world building for reasons that, again, I'm going to get into. You got to watch to the end to hear my hot takes and my strong opinions. But the world building, I think, is done in such a subtle way that really brings something to the text. You know, like that I've got good news says so much about the scenario that they're in such a subtle and quick way. And then they move on from it. He's like, I've got good news, and then cut to they're driving again. And now it's the next vignette. It's the next scenario they find themselves in. I don't know. It's something special. I'm a huge fan of the sniper stuff. Yeah. Moving on, I guess. The music choices are nuts. Some of them, okay, listen, I love the use of music in this movie. I'll be the first to admit that I'm a huge sucker for fun music drops. I think a lot of people will point at a soundtrack of well-known and or popular music being, not that the songs in this are popular necessarily, but like of quote unquote real songs that were not created to be in a movie, but rather were created to be listened to on like an album or whatever, that it's almost kind of a cop-out. You know, like a good music drop is great, but it's so easy to just like, I want this scene to feel like this, I'll just implant a random song that kind of feels like this. I'm very forgiving of that. I love a good use of music. It's part of why I love Edgar Wright's work so much. It's part of why, you know, I mean, there's a lot of scenes that I really dig because of the music choice, and there are some wild music choices in this movie. I don't necessarily vibe with all of them. Some of them are almost kind of confusing, but I love how bold the choices were. And specifically the scene driving through the burning forest as the old man dies in the back seat, which you knew happened, right? Because you've seen the movie. That's why you're watching it at this point. If you didn't know the old guy dies, you're watching the video by now. Fuck off. I told you. Get out of here. Okay? Go watch the movie. But when they're driving through the forest and the forest is on fire and he's dying and it plays that Sturgill Simpson song, I'm such a sucker for that. Like, if you want to talk about, if I was the crowd and you want to talk about a quintessential crowd-pleasing moment, it's that fucking scene. I don't care. It's a simple scene. It runs for a very long time. I downloaded the song and listened to it on the drive home from the movie today. I'm pretty sure it runs through the entire song, and the song's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for as far as like injecting emotion into that scene. But holy shit, I love it so much. Like the almost monochromatic element of it, where it's dark and it's just the red of the fire, and like those slow motion shots where it's like the shot from, it's like down like low on the back bumper of the truck, and there's all the embers flying through the air, and the embers are in front of the truck and the embers are behind it, and like that beautiful. Can I play that song? I'm gonna try to just real quick. It's just all the slow motion like turns, like oh how the breakers roll. You got the guy in the back seat just like he's dying. He's on his way out. And it's all slow and they're driving. You know what I mean? Like it's just so fucking good. Like I can't wait for that movie to come out on like digital or something so that I can pull up that scene on YouTube. That's gonna be a late at night, I can't sleep scene I watch. I'm telling you right now. It's so good. What else we got? My boy Jesse. Okay? Jesse. That guy, spoiler alert, he's only in like 5 minutes of this movie. But holy shit, does he not make an impression. That's such a scary sequence. Because like I alluded earlier, like this isn't necessarily an outright horror movie. There are no ghouls, there are no goblins. But it's so, like it's crazy tense the whole time. And that entire sequence out in the field is just, it's when, like you know things are bad, and then when he shoots the driver of the other car. When he shoots the driver of the car that the kid climbed into, which a lot of people, I've heard a couple of people, not a lot of people, but a couple of people bitch about that scene as well. It's because they're adrenaline junkies, okay? Like see exhibit B of this video. They're all in it because they would base jump in another life. Anyway, when he shoots the driver of that car and it ratchets up that tension and you're like, oh, this guy's serious. It's so intense. And his demeanor is something special. First off, he was gonna shoot Wagner, right? Because on the one hand, okay, he's clearly racist. The reason he's so against Wagner doing the talking, and he's really like leaning into like, well, what kind of American are you? Are you Central American? Are you South American? It's because he's got an accent, right? I think it's built upon the fact that Wagner's from Florida, and Florida is also a rebel contingency. They're not the Western Forces necessarily, but like they've also splintered off. I think just in general, you know, he was definitely gonna shoot him, right? If old guy hadn't driven up with the truck and bopped him into a hole, he was probably gonna shoot him. You know, the way he evaluates what America is America, you know, the whole like Missouri, Colorado, like that's America. That's what I'm talking about. That's America. It's just so good. And like I'm so fascinated by the fact that like somebody chose those sunglasses for him. There was somebody on set whose job it was to decide what he was wearing. And most of them are going to be fatigues, but somebody chose to put him in those sunglasses. And it's such a look, and it's so scary that he looks like that. The fact that those are his sunglasses of choice is somehow really scary about who he is as a person. I trust him less because he woke up in the morning and he put those on, and that's his look, and he's dumping a bunch of dead bodies out of a truck into a big ass hole that he's covering in lye and covering up, and it's so special. I don't know. It's indicative. The whole movie is just the way that they use tension is great. That long shot of them driving on the road when we first see that they're being followed by somebody who turns out to be friends, but then they switch cars and then they run into Jesse Plemons and everything bad happens. That drive past, and then we linger for too long, and then there's another car coming, and we linger for a little longer than we probably need to, and then we cut, is great. Again, the first time I watched it, throughout the movie, the first time I watched it, my girlfriend was slapping me and fidgeting because it was so goddamn tense. But that like, I got a little, she's, oh, there's another car, like, and you feel it in your bones. It's the tension, the way that Alex Garland wields tension in this movie, I think is nothing short of masterful. It's a scary movie without being a horror movie, and it could just say something about me and what I tend to watch, but I've not seen a movie like that in a while. I know they exist, but it was really cool. I don't know, it was quite an experience. I'm very happy. I really like this movie. Can you tell? I really like this movie. So, to things I didn't necessarily like about this movie. Don't love the ending. Main complaint. Don't love the ending. Specifically, I don't like Kirsten's role in the ending. I don't know, it all kind of seems like her character seems to be developing in a certain way, and I don't think necessarily that character development is betrayed by how the movie ends, but it at the very least rushed. Like, okay, first and foremost, why is she suddenly freaking out when they get to the Capitol? She is stone cold this entire movie. Stone cold. I mean, when they're at the camp, when they find out that potentially old guy died for nothing because the Western forces are marching on the Capitol, like right now, it's all over. She's washing blood out of the back of the van, and she's stone cold washing the blood out of the back of the truck. And then suddenly they get to the Capitol, and now she's hyperventilating and she's starting to freak out. And frankly, it was more distracting than anything else, because that ending sequence is so good and the action is great, and what all of the other characters, what Wagner's doing, what the kid's doing, what all the nameless fucking army people are doing, like everybody else is just nailing it. They are on their A game. And then Kirsten Dunst, we just keep cutting to her fucking slowly crying more and more into a wall. And I know, you know, there's reads to it where it makes sense, but I just, it feels, the experience of it feels like whiplash. And when I rewatched it today, I was specifically watching it to try to see if I could catch when that development happened, when she started to crack. And it just feels like all of a sudden she's like breaking, and I don't understand why. Then all of a sudden she's like back into it, and then like the decoy cars come out of the White House. And they're flying, and everybody's like, oh shit, the president's in this. And they're just shooting at a bulletproof fucking window. And her spidey senses just tingle. And she's like, oh no, he's not out. He's still in the room. Why does she know that? Why? Like, I'm okay with experience helping her know that this is probably a decoy and that he's still in the building, but like, shouldn't the army have somebody who went, maybe he didn't actually flee, maybe he's still in, like, the fact that they get to the White House before the fucking army does, because Kirsten Dunst all of a sudden stops having a fucking panic attack and goes, oh no, I know this scenario better than the armed forces. The president's still inside, and they wander off. It's just weird. It's just, I don't like that moment, even if her character had stayed consistent. But the fact that she went from full-blown crying into a cinder block to then putting those pieces together when nobody else could for some reason is weird to me. And then the biggest thing is her push. Okay, so she's back to full baller status. She's in it. She's doing some pictures. People are shooting down the hallway, and she pulls a couple of these because she's fearless and she's getting that good shot. And the kid sees her do that, and the kid's doing a lot of growing. Honestly, the movie at this point is about the kid. It's not about Kirsten Dunst. It's about the kid. She's in it now. Like, this is the sequence after the scene that I was talking about earlier, where it's clear the life has got her. She's addicted to it now. This is who she is. And so you see her steel herself up. She goes across the front. She stops halfway through like a dummy, but like, she's young. Okay, it happens. And some guys are gonna shoot her. And so Kirsten Dunst runs out and pushes her. She pushes her and then stands there. She doesn't tackle her like you would in real life. She does like a classic, we need somebody to get shot in place of another person, but it's kind of unrealistic in real life. So she's gonna push her and then stand there for a second so then she can get shot in the back. I don't care for it at all. I don't like it. I'm comfortable with the idea that Alex Garland was like, this movie is gonna be a passing of the baton, a passing of the torch. My light just died. Should I get a new one? Nah, we're in this. Now we're moody, okay? He was like, okay, there's gonna be a passing of the torch and that Kirsten Dunst is gonna die. But just a silly way to do it. She looked silly. My girlfriend afterwards posited the idea that she did it on purpose, that she was handing off the torch in more ways than one, and she intended to get shot, but this was kind of her breaking point, and it was over for her. And she went back in knowing that she wasn't gonna make it out. And that's a really interesting read, I think. I think there's an argument to be made there. There's something to be said, but it's clumsy as fuck to look at. Like, it looks clumsy as hell. I saw it for a second time today, and I liked it less than the first time, which is unfortunate, but I don't think ruins the movie. Again, I like most of the movie. I dislike the ending. That happens sometimes because, again, I specifically dislike Kirsten Dunst's role in the ending. I think the kids, like the end of her story arc with that, and with her being the person who gets the shot of the president getting shot, is really satisfying. I think it's really cool. When they finally make it into the Oval Office and they drag President Nick Offerman from behind the desk. Side note, not near as much Nick Offerman as the trailers made it seem like they were gonna be. But yeah, then when they drag President Nick Offerman from behind the desk, and my boy Wagner's like, no, I need a fucking quote. And he, in this like cowardly, groveling sort of way, is like, please don't let them shoot me. And he's like, yeah, I'll do. That's some cold ass shit, dude. Like it's as good of a last line as I could have hoped for my boy Wagner. And I think it's the last line of the movie, and he deserves it because, again, he's the standout of this movie. I love that character so much. I love him so much. So yeah, I'm gonna finish this off back to the politics of it all, okay? Because a lot of the complaints I've been hearing is the fact that it's kind of lukewarm on its stance, and I think that's cool. Because I think, like, after the couple of info dump scenes, it's clear by that point that, like, Nick Offerman's the bad guy. Like, the president's the bad guy in the Civil War. But he's not necessarily the bad guy of this movie. The bad guy of this movie is war. It's just war and conflict. And, like, I think... So, okay, so when I went to see it today, I brought a notepad so I could write notes. So I could give myself these little lampposts. And right out of the gate, the very first thing I wrote, as it's the scene when Nick Offerman's like geared himself up to give that address, intercutting it with a lot of scenes that are unfortunately quite familiar to us in recent years, of like, you know, riots and just general violence indicative of the division currently taking place on American soil, and that has been taking place for quite some time. And I wrote, is the setting exploitative? Because I think it might be. Because I think there's an argument to be made, in my opinion. If you're gonna release a movie today, in a post and potentially pre-Trump America, about an American Civil War, and you don't take a stance on it, you instead just use it as a backdrop to tell another story, but one that you know American audiences are going to get a gut punch out of, because we all saw, I mean, I live near Atlanta. I remember seeing my city burn on the news. 4 years ago? There's violence happening a lot, and to use that familiarity we would have with that unfortunate, just general vibe as a backdrop to your movie, is that exploitative? Is that making us care? Using those clips of the police with riot shields intercut among Nick Offerman hyping himself up in that opening scene, is that tugging on heartstrings for no reason? Is that, you know, making us think that this is going to be more important than it is? I don't know, maybe. But also, what's good about the movie is how sick the action is. You know, like we're as at fault as the characters we're following. The rush, even though we know, I mean, it's not far out to say that we could see something like this, you know, hopefully not, probably not, in my opinion, but like it could happen. We relate to that, and then we enjoy the spectacle of them, you know, shooting missiles at the White House. Like, it puts us all in the same boat as my boy Wagner, who's stoked to go see bloodshed in the morning. Like, you know for a fact he went to sleep hoping that those gunshots hadn't stopped yet, because it's a ride. And I think it's a decent decision. So my hot take about the setting is that, and this is going to pertain specifically to American audiences, because I'm an American, and we have to admit that the American audiences are important to A24, who, again, in no real uncertain terms, have kind of made it clear that they really want this movie to make money, because they need to start making money on big budget swings. But I think a lot of the strength of setting this in America, specifically for the end, for the climax of the movie, is because as an American, I can imagine what the fall of America looks like. You know what I mean? Like, if this movie was set in Turkey and they were storming the Turkish capital to take out the head of the Turkish government, a lot of it would be, I'd be taking their word for it. You know, that's a kind of a scene that I've seen so many times, but I don't know the ins and outs of how Turkey's government works. So like, you know, it's just a setting. But when they're storming the White House and they're capping Secret Service members, I can recognize that. You know, like this movie ends in the Oval Office because of course it does. But like, I've seen the Oval Office. You know what I mean? Like, there's something so innately powerful about watching my civilization crumble, or like my nation fall, because I know how my nation works. And I think specifically for American audiences, the climax is gonna hit harder. That last like 20, 30 minutes of the movie is gonna hit harder because you know what you're looking at. I don't think that's all of why this movie's set in America. I don't think that's why he chose it to be a civil war. I don't think he chose it to be a civil war for a lot of the reasons that people were hoping for, as far as the messages they were gonna get out of this movie. I've heard that his interviews are kind of annoying, but like he's not helping his case. I've not seen any of those because again, I saw the first trailer and I was like, I'm gonna see that, and then I stopped watching things. I don't know, but all of that is to say that I think it being set in America strengthened that ending for me. And yeah, that is what I've got about Civil War the movie. This is so much longer than I was hoping it was gonna be. I'm so bad at this. I wanted this to be like a 20-minute ramble that I was gonna cut into 10 minutes, and it's over an hour. It's well over an hour. Hopefully I got this out in a timely manner, and this is still relevant when I released it. Some extra bits and bobs. Some bobs and bits for free. The trailers for this movie were a lot of fun. I noticed a couple of things. First off, there was a trailer for the Twisters movie, the sequel to the 1996 hit Twister. And listen, I could give a shit less about the original Twister. I've never seen it. I remember it being a big deal in 6th grade for some reason. I'm not that old. I was not in 6th grade in 96 when it came out. I don't know why it was suddenly in my classmates' consciousness. I know it has to do with tornadoes, but the moment when the drones pop out of the truck because old Nat's trying to destroy tornadoes, chef's kiss. I mean, so good. I have zero interest in seeing that movie, and unless I'm doing it for a bit, I likely won't ever see that movie. But I was filled with a genuine childlike glee seeing Glenn Howard. What's his name? Glenn. Seeing Glenn talking about like, oh, you always wanted to see if you can destroy a tornado. Now you can, and there's drones coming out. It's so ignoring the fact that we tend to focus on those movies, and ignoring the fact that we waste so much money making them, because that's so much of what we make these days. I do think there should be space in the cinema landscape for dog shit, brainless action movies like that. I don't think Twisters is going to do very well. It will probably lose money. Nobody asked for this movie, but by God, am I happy it exists. You know, that trailer is hilarious. Speaking of trailers, I love how the Planet of the Apes movies naming convention is working. The new one's called Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I love that they have to have Planet of the Apes. Like at this point, it's silly, right? Like they know it's silly. Like you got, what is it? Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then War for the Planet of the Apes, and then I don't even remember what the other one is. Apparently these are good movies. I've not seen them, but I intend to, because I've heard really good things. But the fact that they seemingly require you to include the words Planet of the Apes in your movie title, and it's just becoming longer and more convoluted by the movie. Again, love that. Keep that up, studio system. And also there was a cult looking movie, a cult, real culty looking, creepy like horror movie. I think it's called Long Legs or something. I don't know. The movie trailer didn't look interesting at all, but in the ending screen when they were showing the like main actors, Nicolas Cage was the second actor, and he wasn't even in the fucking trailer. That movie might be bonkers. You're telling me it's a Nick Cage movie that you can't show him in the trailer? I probably won't see it because something tells me it's gross, but boy oh boy, does it. I support it. I support its existence. If you like gross things, you should go see it, because something tells me it might be pretty fucking interesting. And yeah, that is Civil War. I hope this video came out just like it all. This is not a review channel at all. Like if this was gonna be a review channel, this review is fucking late. Like the movie's been out for like 4 or 5 days at this point right now, and it'll take me at least a week to edit this. Like the movie's gonna be old news by the time this comes out. But since I have a new kind of semi-permanent set setup. I'm interested in the idea of doing videos like this. Like when the opportunity arises and when something strikes my fancy, I don't necessarily have to have everything written out to a T. I can just come up here and sort of bullshit about something I care about. And I hope this test has proven good. Like I hope this is interesting. I hope it came out all right. If you do like the written stuff better, I do have the next Liar's Guide is deep into editing. It should be coming out hopefully in another week or two after this is released. If this is the first thing you've ever seen of me and you're still watching, awesome, thanks. You should go check out my my Liar's Guide to Love Actually, which I guess I'll link up there. It's, I think, more indicative of what I usually do on this channel. It's a good example of what is coming up with the next one that I'll be releasing. It's gonna be very similar to that. Plus, I'm just like really proud of that video. I don't know, I think that video came out super nice. Yeah, I guess technically this is the first time you're seeing the set put together. I expected the set unveiled to be the next video, but then Civil War came out. There's usually not a chair back there, but I wanted the opportunity to sit. Let me know what you think of that, because that's a whole thing. All the music you've been listening to, like the background music, has been from my boy KB, old Killer Bob, member of the Complex, lives upstairs, very talented musician. He's doing some really interesting stuff. He's got a couple tapes out on Bandcamp for sure. I know he just got on, he just started putting his music on like Spotify, Apple Music, that kind of thing. Check him out. He's incredibly talented, and watching him work, he's only getting better. Like I genuinely think there's going to be some really special stuff coming out of him over the next, like, you know, year or so. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're living good. I'm pretty stressed recently, like good stressed, I guess. And I don't know when things are good. Things have been real good. I think that's important. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people worry about not being happy all the time, and I think we forget about the fact that we're not built to be happy all the time. If you want to be happy all the time, try doing a bunch of drugs and then watching your fucking dopamine receptors wear out. Like we're not built to be happy all the time. All that matters is that when you do have the opportunity to be happy, you're not standing in your own way. You know, we're a healthy happiness diet is what we should be striving for, not happy all the time. You know, it's one of the food groups, and as long as you're getting some in your diet, that's what matters. And I hope that you're doing that. You know, in the meantime, take it easy. I will hopefully see you in a couple of weeks. Yeah, stop shopping on Amazon. See you soon. I was really hoping for more of a sound from that. I look so greasy. It's astonishing when you stand up here in front of a camera. Like I was just 5 minutes ago somewhere else thinking about what I could say in this, and it came so easily. But as soon as I'm standing in front of the camera, suddenly it's like kind of tricky. You know, I have such a hard hobby. I'm such a hard hobbyist. I'm gonna make t-shirts with that. Just a shirt that says I'm a hard hobbyist. I hobby hard.